Have you ever wondered why you've carried certain personality traits your whole life, why you feel an immediate affinity with some ideas, places, or people even without ever experiencing anything similar in this life? According to Buddhist spiritual teachings, our soul doesn't arrive in the world as a blank slate. It brings silent memories, deep marks, and lessons from other existences, which reveal themselves not only in our behaviors, but also in something few imagine: the last digit of our birth year. Spirituality shows us that each number has a unique vibration of frequency that runs through our soul and influences our way of being. The last number of your birth year is not a coincidence, it's like a silent signal that connects your current life to the experiences you lived in other incarnations. This number can reveal patterns you tend to repeat, challenges you need to overcome, and also gifts you already carry, often without realizing. Discovering this meaning can change the way you see yourself. In this video, we will explore in a simple and profound way what each of the digits from 0 to 9 can reveal about your past life, and how this knowledge can help you better understand who you are today. This dive is not about mysticism or superstition, but about self-knowledge, understanding the marks your soul carries, embracing your tendencies, and making more conscious choices with more compassion and wisdom to keep evolving. When we know our history, we understand our present better. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and prepare to dive into this ancient knowledge. If you like content that helps you reflect on who you are, what you came here to do, and how you can evolve, take a moment to leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell. And at the end, write in the comments which city or country you're watching from, so we can see how far this message has reached, and create a beautiful chain of consciousness around the world. Before we start talking about the numbers and what the last digit of your birth year can reveal about your past life, I need to tell you something essential, something you may never have stopped to think about deeply. This is not your first life, and very likely it won't be your last. Our existence is not limited to a single passage through this world. On the contrary, we are spiritual beings living multiple human experiences in a long and silent journey of evolution. Each life is a chapter of a much larger story which goes far beyond what we can remember or fully understand now. When we pass from one life to another, we don't start from 0. We carry with us lessons, memories, emotional patterns, karma, what was well resolved, and also what remains pending. Thus our soul transforms, matures, and evolves with each existence until one day it reaches a state so full of consciousness and compassion that it no longer needs to return to this cycle. This is the great beauty, and also the great mystery of our spiritual journey. We are not trapped, we are always learning, always refining ourselves. It would be very unfair to think that we have only one life to learn everything, to overcome all challenges, to be judged and then labeled as good or bad. Existence is much more complex and merciful than that. Many people are born into extremely difficult contexts, complicated family situations of violence, poverty, or abandonment, while others arrive in this world with more favorable conditions, with more love, more opportunities, more comfort. How could we be judged the same way if the conditions are so different? It wouldn't be fair. And the answer to this apparent enigma is simple and at the same time profound. We are not judged, we are learners. Our soul does not die, it is infinite. What dies, what stays behind, are the temporary forms, the bodies, the identities of each existence, but what is essential in user consciousness, our spiritual spark, continues, crosses time, spaces, bodies, carrying with it everything that was learned and everything that still needs to be healed. That's why what you live today is not a coincidence nor a punishment. It is an opportunity, a stretch of your journey, a field of learning chosen often by your own soul, even before you were born. Yes, it may seem strange or even hard to accept, but we choose consciously or not many aspects of our next life, including the family we will be born into, not out of masochism or punishment, but because we understand on a higher spiritual plane that certain experiences are necessary for our growth. And that's why many times we feel inexplicable connections with some people in our family. Perhaps you've already felt that your son or daughter is in fact a very ancient soul by your side, or that there is a deep affinity with your mother or with your grandparents, with your grandchildren, as if you've known each other for much longer than this life allows. And probably that's exactly it. These connections didn't start here. They are spiritual bonds that cross lives, that repeat, that transform, but that never break. So when we talk about past lives, we're not talking only about distant events, or vague memories. We're talking about who you are today, about who you relate to, about the most important bonds in your life. Your soul chose many of the experiences you live, the people you love, the challenges you face, and it's with this awareness that now, yes, we can move forward to understand what the last digit of your birth year reveals about your spiritual trajectory. Take a deep breath, and let's go together. If the last digit of your birth year is 0, you probably are a person who carries since forever a strong feeling that you're never complete, that life is a sequence of cycles that open and close, always demanding a new beginning. Perhaps you've already changed paths several times, relationships, jobs, cities, and even so, you always feel that you're at the start of something, as if your life were made to constantly renew itself. This is the spiritual mark that the number 0 carries the energy of new beginnings. People with the number 0 at the end of their birth year usually feel a silent anguish, as if they're always searching for their place in the world, but never finding it completely. Perhaps you identify with that feeling of always being one step behind others, or that you need to prove more, do more, be more. But the truth is that this search is not a mistake, it's a call from your soul, which has already lived many closures, and in this life came to learn to embrace the void, the restart, the space between the end and the beginning. You probably are someone who, even without realizing, inspires others to change, to reinvent themselves, to step out of their comfort zone. Your presence is usually unsettling for those who prefer stability, because you radiate an energy that invites movement, renewal. It's no wonder that many people close to you may call you inconstant, indecisive, or even impulsive, but you know it's not quite that. Deep down, you just can't stand staying still in situations that no longer make sense. It's also very common for those who carry the number 0 to face throughout life many ruptures, friendships that end suddenly, opportunities that fall apart, plans that change without warning. It can be painful. And perhaps you've already asked yourself, why with me are things never linear? But in truth, this is part of your path. Your soul, which has already ended many cycles in the past, came now to learn, to be reborn, to start from 0, and above all to trust that each restart is not a failure but an opportunity for evolution in everyday life. You can notice this pattern in small things. You start projects with enthusiasm, but sometimes lose interest. You feel an immense desire to change cities or environments. You frequently need to air out your routine, otherwise you feel like you're suffocating, and all this is natural. Your energy demands movement, transformation, and lightness. You were not made to stagnate, to follow the same path from beginning to end. Your soul needs to experiment, explore, renew. On the other hand, it's important to be careful with the feeling of emptiness that sometimes accompanies you. Those who carry the vibration of 0 may at times feel that they don't belong anywhere, or that they have no roots. But know your root is not in the place nor in the people, but in your own capacity to reinvent yourself. When you embrace this nature, you stop blaming yourself for being different and start to realize that your greatest strength is exactly this, the capacity to start over whenever necessary. If you identified with this, take a breath and follow the numbers of your children, grandchildren, or someone you love. You'll be able to understand better and see why your connection is from other lives. Now let's move to the next number. If the last digit of your birth year is 1, it's very likely that you've always felt a very strong need to do things your own way since childhood. You may have shown that typical stubbornness, that uncontrollable desire to try things on your own even when others had already warned you about the outcome. This impulse is not a flaw, it's a characteristic of your soul. You came with the energy of autonomy, initiative, and creation. People with this vibrational mark tend to be seen by others as independent, courageous, and determined. Perhaps you've already heard phrases like, "You don't like help, do you?" Or "You always want to do it your way." And deep down it's true. You feel that you need to try, that you only learn by living it yourself, that ready-made paths don't work for you. This pattern is not just behavioral, but spiritual. Your soul carries the need to lead its own life because it has already lived lives of great dependence and now seeks autonomy. Because of this, you probably feel a huge discomfort when you find yourself limited by rigid rules, suffocating relationships, or routines that take away your freedom to be who you are. You may have difficulty accepting orders without questioning, and are often seen as rebellious or resistant. But what few understand is that you're not trying to go against everything. You just need to feel that you're being true to yourself, that you're building your own path. This is your deepest nature, to be the creator of Your trajectory. This need for autonomy, however, can generate conflicts, especially in family and professional relationships. Perhaps you've already gone through situations where you distanced yourself from important people because you felt they were trying to control or shape you. You may have changed jobs or even ended relationships because you realized you were giving up your identity, and all this, although painful, is part of your evolution process. Learning to balance the desire for autonomy with the need to maintain healthy bonds in everyday life. This trait appears in small things. You like to choose what you're going to eat, how you're going to dress, which hobbies you're going to practice, and you hate feeling that you're being pushed into choices that aren't yours. You probably prefer to work alone, or when working in a team, you like to have freedom to decide what to do. This impulse for autonomy can sometimes lead you to isolate yourself even without realizing it. So it's important to remember being independent doesn't mean being alone. It means choosing consciously with whom and how you want to connect. Another important aspect, those who carry the number 1 tend to be seen as an inspiration by others. Many people may look at you and admire your courage, your initiative, your ability to make things happen, but you don't always feel that way inside. Sometimes you carry a silent insecurity, fear of making mistakes or disappointing. Know this is natural. Your soul is learning in this life to trust in its own strength, to lead without fear, to assume that yes, you were born to open paths, to be an example, to initiate if the last digit of your birth year is 2. You probably notice since forever that you feel things very intensely, perhaps even more than you'd like. You get emotional easily. You're touched by stories and pains that aren't even yours, and many times you take longer to recover from harsh words or conflict situations. This is not weakness, it's a deep mark of your soul. You carry a sensitivity that seeks above all harmony in relationships and environments. People with this vibration tend to have a strong need to please, to maintain peace, to avoid unnecessary conflicts. Perhaps you've already swallowed many words to avoid hurting someone or accepted things you didn't want just to not create an unpleasant atmosphere. This happens because for you, collective well-being weighs as much as more than your own will, and many times this puts you in places of emotional overload because not everyone around you realizes how much you strive to keep everything in balance. Behind this search for harmony lies a soul that probably has already lived experiences of great tension or rupture in past lives, and now feels that it needs to avoid unnecessary pain, protect itself, and protect others from conflicts that cause deep wounds. That's why you are seen as a conciliator, as that person who always tries to understand all sides, who promotes dialogue, who avoids extremes, and this is one of your greatest qualities, the ability to create bridges where others see only walls. However, there is a risk. By avoiding conflicts at all costs, you may end up nullifying yourself, failing to express your true needs. Perhaps you've already felt that to maintain peace you often end up giving up on yourself, and this is one of the important lessons of this life, learning that seeking harmony doesn't mean staying silent or nullifying yourself, but rather finding healthy ways to express yourself without losing your welcoming and peaceful essence in daily life. This manifests in simple behaviors. You avoid arguments, prefer tranquil environments, like to help others, but suffer a lot when you feel unvalued or when you perceive ingratitude. Your soul seeks relationships where it can feel safe, welcomed, where kindness is not mistaken for weakness, and above all, it desires to be recognized for its ability to care, to understand, and to make the world around it a little lighter and more harmonious. Perhaps you are still learning to say no, to set boundaries, to not carry the emotional weight of everyone around you. This is part of your process, understanding that your sensitivity is a gift, but that it also needs to be protected and respected. Your soul came to teach peace, but also to learn that not every battle should be avoided. Some need to be faced, especially those that involve your own integrity. If the last digit of your birth year is 3, it's very likely that you carry within you an intense desire to express yourself, to be noticed, to share with the world what you feel and think. Since childhood, perhaps you were that person who liked to draw attention, who created stories, who made others laugh, or who always had something creative to show. This is not vanity, nor a need for approval. It's the natural call of your soul, which seeks in this life to manifest itself with authenticity and joy. Those who carry this energy usually have a very striking communication, whether through speech, writing, arts, or any form that allows them to show the world who they are. Perhaps you've already felt at various moments that anxiety of not being heard or not having space to express what you think, And when that happens, your soul becomes sad, feels invisible, suffocated, because for those who vibrate in the number 3, expressing themselves is not just a desire, it's a vital need. This search for expression can also make you very connected to humor, to lightness, to joy. Even in difficult moments, it's possible that you try to find a way to make the environment lighter, more relaxed, more fun, and people notice this. Many times they seek you out precisely because they know that near you life seems easier, less heavy, but not everyone around you understands that behind this expansive smile there is a soul that also feels deeply. Perhaps you've already gone through situations where you felt misunderstood, as if people saw you only as the cheerful one, the joker, but didn't perceive your depth, your fears, your anxieties. Those who carry the vibration of 3 need to learn to balance the desire to entertain with the need to be welcomed in their entirety, including the most vulnerable parts. You don't need to always be up to be loved. Your true expression is enough in everyday life. You can notice this trait in small habits. You like to talk, to share your ideas. You feel uncomfortable when you stay silent or isolated for too long. You seek environments where you can interact, create, move. You are someone who many times encourages others to let loose too, showing by example that life can be lighter when we allow ourselves to be who we are without fear of judgment. But precisely because this need for expression is so intense, you may end up sometimes getting lost amid so many possibilities, so many projects, so many desires. You may have difficulty finishing what you start, or feel frustrated when you realize you're not receiving the attention you'd like. The great lesson here is to learn that you don't always need external validation. Your expression is valuable for its own sake, and your joy in living is a gift even when it's not applauded. If the last digit of your birth year is 4, it's very likely that you've always felt a deep need for security, stability, and predictability in your life from early on. Perhaps you were that person who was more serious, more focused, the one who always wanted to do the right thing and follow what is safe, even if it meant giving up some dreams. Your soul carries a search for structure, for solid foundations, because it has already experienced in other experiences moments of great instability and insecurity. People who carry this vibration are usually extremely responsible, often even more than would be expected for their age or context. Perhaps you took on from a young age responsibilities that weren't exactly yours, caring for siblings, helping parents, worrying about things that normally wouldn't be a child's concern. This happens because for those who have the energy of the number 4, duty and responsibility are like a second skin, something natural, but which can become a burden when not balanced. This pattern also manifests in the way you organize your life. You like planning. You prefer to have a schedule. You feel uncomfortable with unforeseen events or sudden changes. Your soul seeks the tranquility that comes from predictability and order. And although this is an admirable quality, it can lead you to be seen as rigid, inflexible, or even resistant to innovation. The great lesson here is to understand that true security is not only in the external structure, but also in the trust you develop in yourself. In the field of relationships, those who carry the number 4 tend to be extremely loyal and committed. You probably value greatly the given word, agreements, commitments, and suffer when you realize that others don't act with the same seriousness. You may have difficulties with people who are more impulsive or disorganized, as you feel they threaten your emotional stability. Your soul in this life seeks to learn to balance this need for security with the flexibility necessary to deal with the unpredictability of existence. In professional life, it's common for you to prefer more structured environments where you know exactly what your role is and what is expected of you. You like financial stability, building assets, having guarantees. You don't feel comfortable with high risks or abrupt changes in direction. This behavior is not a sign of fear, but of a soul that seeks in this existence to create solid, firm foundations upon which it can build its trajectory without fearing collapses. On the other hand, this intense need for stability can at times prevent you from experiencing new possibilities, from taking risks on new paths, or from accepting changes that, although uncomfortable at first, can bring a lot of growth. Perhaps you've already refused important opportunities out of fear of leaving your comfort zone, and this is natural for those who vibrate in the 4, but at the same time it's an invitation to learn that not every change means loss. Sometimes it's exactly what your soul needs to evolve. Your presence transmits confidence to others. You are seen as that person who can be trusted, who is always there, firm fulfilling what they promise your soul in this life came to teach about commitment, responsibility, and solidity, but it also came to learn that even the strongest structure needs to have flexibility to avoid breaking, and with this learning we move on to learn about the marks that the number 5 reveals. If the last digit of your birth year is 5, you probably feel since forever an almost visceral need for freedom, for movement, for experiencing new things. Your soul carries a restless creative energy which cannot stand the idea of living a monotonous life tied to rigid routines or environments that suffocate your desire to explore. You seek above all to live experiences that make you feel that you are truly living and not just existing. People with this vibration are those who, even without realizing, are always changing something: a trip, a course, a style, an environment. You may be seen by others as someone inconstant, but in truth what moves you is not instability but the need to feel free to choose and transform. The fear of being trapped, of being limited or controlled, often guides your decisions, making you flee from relationships or situations that seem to imprison you. Perhaps you've already noticed that you get bored quickly when there are no novelties, challenges, or changes happening. Routine for you can be one of the greatest sources of anguish. You need stimulation, diversity, encounters, discoveries. Your soul has already experienced and other lives very significant experiences related to the lack of free demand, and therefore now seeks to compensate for this by living with intensity, taking advantage of every opportunity that arises, even if this makes you seem impulsive to those who don't know you well. In relationships, this search for freedom can generate some challenges. It's possible that you've already ended relationships or distanced yourself from important people simply because you felt that the bond was becoming suffocating or limiting. It doesn't mean that you don't love or value the other, but that for you, loving means above all respecting the space and freedom of each one. Your soul seeks light, true ties that allow growth and expansion, and not relationships that are based on possession or obligation. In the professional field, those who vibrate in the number 5 generally feel attracted to areas that offer mobility, creativity, and above all variety. Repetitive jobs which require staying in the same place and doing the same tasks every day can leave you frustrated or even sick. Your soul wants to experiment, create, interact with the world in a dynamic and flexible way, even if this means giving up traditional stability. Your spiritual growth comes precisely from embracing this movement as part of your nature. On the other hand, it's important to pay attention to the risk of turning the search for freedom into an escape. Sometimes the fear of boredom or limitation makes you give up on important things before even giving them time to flourish. Perhaps you've already abandoned valuable projects or relationships just because you felt that you were getting too trapped. Learning to differentiate what is imprisonment from what is healthy commitment is one of the great lessons that your soul set out to live in this existence. This vibrant, creative, and restless energy that the number 5 carries is a gift, but also a constant invitation to reflection. Not every stability is a prison, and not every freedom means happiness. Finding this balance is the challenge and the learning that your soul seeks in this life. If the last digit of your birth year is 6, you probably feel from very early on an intense need to care for others. You may be that person who always takes responsibility for friends, who worries too much about those you love, who feels guilty when you can't help. Your soul carries a welcoming, protective energy, and many times you end up putting yourself in the role of the one who solves, who guides, who supports, even more than you should. People with this vibration are usually seen as reliable, responsible, those whom others seek when they need advice or a friendly shoulder. Perhaps you've already felt that many times people overload you because they know that you don't know how to say no easily, and this puts you in a cycle of constant giving, which, when not balanced, can lead you to emotional exhaustion. Your soul has already experienced lives in which care was central, perhaps as someone who took care of families, communities, entire groups, and in this existence you feel, even without realizing, the need to protect those around you. This can make you take on responsibilities that are not yours or carry the emotional weight of others' choices, believing that it's your obligation to solve or alleviate the other's suffering. In the field of family relationships, it's very common for you to feel a deep connection and at the same time a great demand. You may have taken on from early on roles of support, care, or mediation, especially if your family went through conflicts or difficulties. Perhaps you are the one everyone seeks in moments of crisis, but who when in need doesn't always find the same welcoming. And this can generate a silent feeling of loneliness even when surrounded by people at work. You tend to stand out in areas where you can help, care, teach, or guide. You may have a natural ease in dealing with people, resolving conflicts, and creating harmonious environments, but you also need to be careful not to put yourself in second place all the time, always prioritizing the well-being of others and forgetting to look at your own needs. Your limits, your desires emotionally. Those who carry the energy of the number 6 need to learn to balance compassion with self-care. It's important to remember that caring for the other doesn't mean nullifying yourself, that loving doesn't mean taking everything on alone. Your soul came to teach about the value of presence, of welcoming, of responsibility, but also to learn that balance is essential. You cannot offer support if you are always exhausted. Behind this desire to help and protect, there is a generous and many times wounded heart which fears being rejected. If it's not useful, but it's fundamental to understand that you deserve love and recognition, not only for what you do but for what you are. Your soul is valuable simply for its presence and not only for its ability to care. If the last digit of your birth year is 7, you probably feel a natural need to withdraw, to have moments of solitude, of silence, even if you don't always know how to explain why. Since childhood, you may have been the one who preferred to play alone, who got lost in books, deep thoughts, while others sought bustle and company. Your soul carries an energy that values introspection and reflection, as if it instinctively knew that life goes beyond what is visible. People with this vibration are often seen by others as reserved, mysterious, or even distant. Perhaps you've already heard things like you think too much, or you don't like to talk about what you feel, and indeed you may have difficulty exposing your emotions or fully trusting people, not because you are cold but because you feel that not everyone is capable of understanding the depth of your thoughts and your inner questions. Your soul has already experienced in other lives experiences that required a lot of wisdom, analysis, and discernment. Therefore, in this existence, you feel a natural call to seek deeper answers, to question the meaning of things, to investigate beyond the surface. You may have a special interest in philosophy, spirituality, science, or any area that allows you to better understand the world and yourself. The search for the why of things is a constant mark in your trajectory in the field of relationships. This need for introspection can generate challenges. You may feel that you need a lot of time alone to recharge your energies, which sometimes is interpreted by others as indifference or distancing. You may have difficulty dealing with people who are too invasive or who demand a constant presence. Your soul needs space, silence, freedom to reflect and process internal experiences before it can fully surrender to someone. In professional life, you tend to stand out in areas that involve analysis, research, intellectual creation, or any activity that allows a certain degree of autonomy and withdrawal. Working in very noisy, busy environments, or where it's necessary to interact all the time, can be exhausting for you. Your productivity and creativity flourish when you have space to think, plan, and elaborate deeply. Emotionally, those who carry the energy of the number 7 need to learn to balance introspection with openness to the world. It's important to remember that withdrawal is a valuable resource, but that it's also necessary to allow yourself to live experiences with more lightness without fear of getting hurt. Your soul seeks knowledge, but it also needs to learn that not everything can be understood, and that there is beauty in mystery and surrender, and in the spontaneous behind this desire to isolate yourself. There is often a silent fear of not being understood, of not finding someone who can see beyond appearances, but it's important to know that your depth is a gift and that there are people and experiences capable of welcoming and valuing who you are, exactly as you are. If the last digit of your birth year is 8, it's very likely that you feel from early on an intense need to build something solid, to achieve material security, and to gain recognition for your achievements. Your soul carries an energy of strength, discipline, and persistence, which makes you face life as a journey where personal effort is the safest path to achieve what you desire. Even if things are difficult, you prefer to keep going with focus and determination. People with this vibration are naturally seen by others as strong, reliable, and even a bit controlling. Perhaps you've already heard things like you want to control everything, or you don't know how to relax, but in truth, what moves you is not a need for control but the legitimate desire to ensure stability, security, and Respect your soul has already experienced in other lives situations of loss, instability, or even betrayals, and in this existence seeks to protect itself through power and success. It's common for you to feel fulfilled when you realize that you are in command of your own life, making important decisions, taking on responsibilities, and achieving goals. You don't like the feeling of depending on others, and many times prefer to carry the weight of your choices alone rather than having to submit to others' wills. This inner strength is admirable, but it can also make you carry more than you should if you don't learn to share and trust in the field of relationships. You can be someone very protective who does everything to ensure the well-being of those you love, but who sometimes has difficulty showing vulnerability. You may prefer to show strength all the time, believing that this is necessary to maintain others' trust and avoid them taking advantage of your goodwill. However, your soul also needs to learn that showing fragility is not a sign of weakness, but of humanity. In professional life, you tend to stand out in leadership positions or in roles where you can see concretely the fruits of your work. You like clear goals, challenges, competitive environments where you can prove your worth, but it's important to be careful not to turn the search for success into a burden. Your soul came to learn that material realization is important, but that without balance it can distance you from other equally essential dimensions of life, such as affection, lightness, and spirituality. Emotionally, those who carry the energy of the number 8 often demand too much of themselves, placing high standards of performance and success on themselves. Perhaps you've already felt that no matter how much you achieve, it's never enough, as if there were always something more to be done. Another step to be reached. This is one of the great lessons of this vibration, learning to celebrate victories, to value small achievements, and to realize that your strength is not only in what you do, but also in who you are behind this need to build and conquer. There is a deeply responsible soul which knows the value of effort and dedication, but which also needs to allow itself to rest, to trust. To enjoy your mission is not only to reach the top, but to learn that true power lies in balancing strength with wisdom, ambition with generosity, and success with presence. If the last digit of your birth year is 9, you probably feel from very early on a natural inclination to help others, even when no one asks. You may be that person who feels others' suffering as if it were your own, who cannot ignore a need, who cares about social, environmental, or humanitarian causes. Your soul carries a deep mark of compassion, as if it were always seeking to alleviate the world's pain, offering help, presence, and welcoming wherever it goes. People with this vibration usually have a heightened sensitivity which goes beyond the closest circle. It's not just about caring for family or friends. You feel a greater call, a desire to make a difference in the world, to transform collective suffering, even if through small actions. Perhaps you've already participated in causes, volunteer work, community movements, or simply are that person who is always ready to listen and support, even without recognition. By carrying this energy of giving, many times you may feel overloaded or even exhausted. Perhaps you've already noticed that no matter how much you do for others, you don't always receive in the same measure, and this can generate frustration or a feeling of ingratitude. It's common for those who vibrate in the number 9 to need to learn to establish clear boundaries so as not to end up nullifying themselves or living for external demands, forgetting to take care of themselves with the same dedication with which they care for others. In relationships, you tend to be seen as someone reliable, generous, and always available. Many people may approach you seeking emotional support, advice, or simply comfort in your presence, and even if you don't say it, you notice when someone is suffering, when they need help, when they are hiding a pain. Your soul carries a silent wisdom, as if it had learned over many lives to recognize and welcome human vulnerability. At work, you probably feel fulfilled in professions or activities that allow you to serve, to help, to transform. You may stand out in areas such as health, education, social assistance, environment, or any field where you feel that you are contributing to something greater than just your own well-being. However, it's important to be careful not to get too involved or take on responsibilities that are not yours, running the risk of wearing yourself out emotionally and ending up getting sick emotionally. Those who carry the energy of the number 9 need to learn to balance the desire to serve with the need to protect themselves. Your generosity is a rare quality, but it can also make you vulnerable to people who take advantage of your goodwill or who don't value what you offer. The great lesson here is to realize that your mission is not to save the world but to offer what you can with love but without sacrificing or nullifying yourself in the process. Behind this deep compassion there is an ancient soul, which has already lived many significant experiences, and which now seeks in this life to fulfill a role of healing and transformation. Your presence is a silent inspiration, an example of altruism, of empathy, and of unconditional love, qualities that make the world a little better simply by the fact that you are in it. Now that you've learned the meaning of each number, perhaps you've realized that certain characteristics of yours which before seemed like mere personality traits are in fact deep marks of your soul accumulated over many existences. What you feel, the way you act, the choices you repeat, all this carries a history that goes far beyond this life. And understanding this movement is more than a curiosity, it's an opportunity to look at yourself with more compassion. Accepting not only your strengths, but also your vulnerabilities. It's important to remember that there is no better or worse number. Each vibration carries challenges and potentials, learnings and obstacles. Some numbers bring the need to take more care of oneself, others ask for more surrender to the collective, some ask for movement, others ask for stability, but all without exception are legitimate expressions of the human experience. What matters above all is how you choose to relate to this energy, how you decide to welcome or transform what your soul already carries. Perhaps upon hearing about your number you got emotional, recognized patterns you had never named or understood for the first time, why certain situations repeat in your life. This is the power of self-knowledge. It doesn't necessarily change what we are, but it allows us to live with more consciousness, more presence, and more freedom. When we understand where we come from, we manage to make choices more aligned with who we want to be from now on, interrupting cycles of pain and deepening paths of fulfillment and peace. So take this knowledge with you, not as an immutable rule, but as a map, a guide that can help you navigate your journey with more clarity and courage. Your soul chose to be here now, living exactly this experience with this number, with these challenges and these gifts, and from this understanding you can move forward with more serenity, knowing that everything is part of your path of evolution, and that with each step you get even closer to who you really are. If this content touched you in some way, if throughout this video you managed to recognize yourself, to welcome yourself, and who knows, even get emotional upon realizing how much your soul carries deep stories, then I invite you with affection to leave your like. This simple gesture is not just a way to support our work, but also a symbolic way to affirm I recognize my trajectory, I accept who I am. This video was made with the intention of offering clarity, comfort, and inspiration to those who, like you, seek to understand themselves better. Also take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell, because here we continue together deepening themes such as spirituality, self-knowledge, human relationships, and soul evolution. Each video is an opportunity to go further, to look within, to expand your consciousness, and above all to realize that you are not alone in this journey. There are many other people scattered around the world who are also searching for answers, for peace, and for meaning. And speaking of being connected, I really want to know where you are watching us from. Write in the comments your city and country, and share with us a bit of your path. This way we can see how far this message has reached, creating a beautiful chain of consciousness, of presence, and of humanity. Besides, if you know someone who needs to hear this content, share this video. It may be exactly what that person needs to understand their own history better and move forward with more serenity. Finally, I thank you deeply for being here, for dedicating your time and your attention to this moment of reflection and self-knowledge. Always remember, your soul carries a unique history full of wisdom, experiences, and potentials that are still revealing themselves. Keep honoring yourself, keep knowing yourself, and never stop seeking what makes sense to you. Until the next video, and may your walk always be guided by the light of consciousness and by love for your own trajectory.